Welcome to Life of a Founder. Our goal here is to give you an inside look at the experiences of small business owners who have started, operated, and grown a business from the ground up. We strongly believe that there's no better way to learn than by listening to the stories of others. So whether you're already an entrepreneur or dreaming of becoming one in the future, we're sure you'll gain valuable insights from every episode. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the man behind the mic, our host, Matthew Sumter.
Hey everyone, welcome to Life of a Founder. I'm Matthew Sumter, and I'd like to introduce you to my guest today, Josh Orwig, the founder of ERO Media Group. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, before we get into our conversation, what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's thinking about starting their own business?
You know, for me, I think that figuring out your lanes is really important. It's pretty tough because you got to wear a ton of hats. But I think, you know, there's an element where you have to build support. So whether it's sourcing or you get other people involved, finding your lane is been really important for me.
Okay, great. From what you told me before, you're involved in kind of a couple of different businesses, and one of those businesses maybe provides various different kinds of services and stuff. So tell me a little bit about your businesses, how you're structured.
Yeah. So we've got CNS Mailing Resources. It's your very traditional print and mail shop. And then ERO Media Group is, or ERO as we call it, is a creative agency. And then we have another company called Modern Property Marketing that does advertisement for multifamily assets. And so with the different ones, they overflow a little bit. And that's kind of where ERO was born out of, like the idea of, okay, we're doing print and mail. We don't really do the creative part. And websites seem to be really, really important when I joined on the business, and definitely growing. So that's where a lot of the overlap comes from, just the idea of, we have an account, let's offer these services because we can do them, try to package that up so it makes sense to everyone.
All right. Well, why don't you give me a little bit about the history, how you got started? I know you didn't actually start the original business, but you're kind of in charge now. So how did that come about? Yeah.
I was so out of college, I had a math degree, didn't know what to do with that. Other than going to grad school. So my old alma mater was like, hey, you should come teach calculus. So I started teaching in 2007. But then once we had our first child, I was like, I probably need to make some money. And this is not seeming to be a good route for me. So I ran that race. It was really fun. I was a teacher and a coach.
Okay.
Started, naturally was like, well, I'll just entertain the idea of going on to joining the family business. And that was back in 2014. I had a conversation with mom and dad. They're like, you know what? Let's just try it. We'll see what this looks like. And so I joined early on as just a sales guy.
And was that just the print and mail business?
Yeah, at the time, we really were just a mail shop.
Okay.
So, you think of all the print shops around town. They don't do what we do. We were a subcontractor for any kind of postcard mailing, letter mailing. And so when I joined, it was like year one, just like learn and study what's going on. Coincidentally, we had launched, my family did, another business called Children's Treehouse Learning Center, which is a daycare in Lenexa. And through the process of that, I was doing all of the marketing and all of the everything. So a lot of it by myself, because we didn't want to spend money on an agency or anything like that. But then also because my brother, Bryn, he's a trained and has been doing graphic design for 20 years. So it's easy to just have him be like a sub for those, various creative elements that we needed. And so in that process, that's where then I was like, okay, I think I know what I'm going to do. And the idea was like, I'm going to sell mail, start selling a lot more print, and then start selling these creative services. And so fast forward to 2017, that's where at the beginning of the year, I was like, man, this whole digital landscape's blowing up. You now have Instagram, you've got LinkedIn going, people are actually starting to see fruit in these digital services or digital platforms and providing services in those. And so that's where ERO started to formulate. ERO does have some meaning behind it. ERO is standing for Eleanor, Rhett, and Oliver, which are my three kids.
Okay, nice.
And so in 2017, that's when Rhett was born. And it was just this idea of like, a little bit of some sentiment there, but ERO was really just anything non-print and mail. We wanted to offer that service. And I just sort of did everything DIY in the beginning. And then hopefully I can say we've gotten smarter in it. But yeah, as it's gone on, it's evolved into more than just what it was in the beginning.
Okay, nice. And that was about 10 years ago, you said? Maybe.
Yeah, I joined in 10 years. It'll be 10 years this June.
And how old were you when you started that?
I was 29.
29 at that point? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you always know that you wanted to run a business or have a business? I know you said you went into math, teaching, and you had kind of this family business. I mean, what were your thoughts kind of growing up?
Yeah, so my dad started the company when I was 12 out of the garage. Literally, like, classic story. He was in the restaurant industry for a long time. Then he became a manager at this promotional company who was sourcing mail and sourcing print and sourcing that. And I went to his boss and he was like, "Hey, can I be the mail provider and do this for you?" Not knowing anything about mail, but just knew he could probably do it better than what he was experiencing.
Yeah. And
so my dad did that. And then fast forward, my mom, let's see here, around when I was like 14, my mom decided to just start a daycare. Out of thin air, she created her own brand, curriculum, everything. And so I had that in the background for a long time, just the two of them starting companies and running. I think where I realized that I wanted to do this was about 2015, 2016, just realizing I like the autonomy. I don't like being told what to do. I like to provide service at a really, really high level. And that was true even when I was a teacher. I had the autonomy because I was a head coach. Yeah. I could kind of run the team however I wanted to. It was private, so we didn't necessarily have a lot of the red tape that you have in public schools.
Okay.
I created my own curriculum when I was there. So I'd create my own classes. Mm-hmm. We did weird things like write essays and papers in geometry class. And I always liked that. And so, listening to podcasts like this one, it often prompted me to start venturing out within the business to start creating these other entities. And so that's where ERO got created. That's where Modern Property Marketing. And a lot of it, again, was just like seeing lack of service, feel like I can do that and sort of take on the challenge and then look back, see what we created, and then try to formulate it and package it up so it makes sense to people to buy from us. So.
Okay. Very nice. Let's talk a little bit about the company itself and kind of its history. How many employees do you have currently and kind of management structure? Do you have partners or, are you the sole owner, CEO? How's that all set up?
Yeah. So Chris, who actually you walked by when you were coming through, he's the owner.
Okay.
That's my dad. So he's still the owner. It's kind of a funny setup, but yeah, he just manages the mail part of our operations. So as far as partners go, he's 100% S Corp, all of that jazz. So then employees, we've got 15 employees.
Okay.
A portion of them are part-time, and then another portion are full-time.
Okay.
So yeah.
Has the company had to take any kind of financing or anything like that to grow, or was it bootstrap?
Yeah, a lot of bootstrapping. The fortunate component is we do have other businesses within the family, sort of quote-unquote enterprise. It's not a huge one. They're all small businesses. The Treehouse is a pretty good-sized daycare, but there's only one location. It's not like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
We actually were going to have another one, but that kind of fizzled out. But yeah, no, it's all been bootstrapped. So it's literally like, there's no building it and they will come. It's like, go get everything. And then hopefully we'll figure out how to like shove it all in. And actually like the story of growth recently since COVID, we're coming up on 4 years of that, big shutdown that we all felt. We were in a space that was a third, actually smaller than a third of the size we're in now. And the challenge there of growing, where do you find the money? And so that's been a big stressor because it's always just been like self-funded, go get the accounts and then we'll figure out the timing of, where do we put all the stuff in the meantime?
Do you outsource anything or is it pretty much all in-house?
No. Yeah, we definitely outsource. That's the part of like that comment on the lanes. It's been really important for me to realize because there's, with ERO, like it's always been one where it's mostly service-based. So like we can just do it, right? But then you get into like, well, how good of quality is it being done at? And two, like, is that the best use of our time? Mm-hmm. And so The structure we have now is everything's service-based. We do in-house with a couple areas where we bring on just a few vendors. They're usually just freelancers helping out and assisting in different areas where capacity is at a struggle. But then, like, for instance, with print, we strategically don't do any print in-house. A couple things that makes that great for us, other than we do we would call it black imprint. So like addressing a postcard or the imprint on a letter, we do those things in-house. But the benefit is we actually can get real skinny on a lot of our stuff because it's fine because we're mostly just going for services. So all of the color printing we outsource, but the convenient part is all of the places you would print are my customers, because I do all their mail. So then
nice.
It's one of those
reciprocal.
It's very reciprocal. And so we end up getting like production rates. We don't get markups. And so that's what's been kind of fascinating, because early on when I was printing, I would always get criticized because we sourced. Oh, well, you're really expensive then, right? It's like, well, like I'm telling you, it's not. Yeah, we've just been running and it's that area of the business has grown a ton, which has supported us being like, okay, wait, we can source these areas and do really, great job. So we also source like additional warehouse space because we're in the fulfillment world. And if you're a 3PL, like at any moment you can have 200 skids just hit your dock door. And what do you do with that? And so we've got like next week, we've got 4 containers coming. Where do you shove that? And we don't have space here because we're optimized in terms of service. So where do we store that product for 12 months before we get to it? If it's like an e-commerce brand or something like that.
Gotcha. You'd mentioned to me kind of beforehand that, you're not really going for kind of one-off orders, that sort of thing. How do you generally acquire customers? Do you advertise? Is it word of mouth? I mean, where are you getting the new clients that you pick up?
Yeah, I've wrestled with that and struggled a lot. Like, I think I've tried about everything you can imagine. And the irony is we do all of the marketing efforts for any one company.
Sense, yeah.
So we've tried it all. And the irony is we produce and perform services for our customers, but we wouldn't necessarily do this for ourselves. And a lot of it is just doing part of like, well, what kind of acquisition are you going for?
Yeah.
And so most of our customers, they can be B2B, but generally it's going to be a lot of B2C type of marketing. And so for us, acquiring either leads or customers, it's generally just word of mouth. That or I'll do a lot of cold calling. The fortunate component is we don't have to do too much more than those two. Generally speaking, a lot of the services we provide are not executed very well elsewhere. And so our shop is one built on quality, built on speed, and built on nimbleness. And so like, with the consolidation of print and mail going on, there's still the same volume. Everyone's just trying to shove it through less shops. And what that does is it just puts a lot of pressure on those shops to be able to have high quality, have good turnaround times. And so we tend to win a lot of accounts because they'll get really frustrated with the other 2 places that do this one service.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of it's word of mouth, or I'll go and take like muffins to an office, which usually does pretty good. So
works. Yeah.
McLean's muffins. I gotta correct
McLean's.
McLean specifically.
All right. So how hands-on are you personally? Like, what does a day look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, pretty hands-on. We're a pretty small business, so I mean, I'll be involved with all sales, all estimates. I have a couple project managers that can do their own estimates, but often there's going to be questions that pop up, so I'm integrated with that. As far as like overseeing and who I oversee, it's mostly the office staff and then reporting directly with the supervisors in production. So we've got a couple production supervisors. They have their own teams to produce and get product out the door. But there's a lot of overseeing that I'll have to do, a lot in part because some of it's new. We're doing newer services, or just making sure that operations is running accordingly and correctly. So day to day is going to be a lot of email. It's a lot of phone calls, and then a lot of like checking in on where everything's at.
All right. Sounds good. I'm sure there have been a lot of challenges growing, but is there anything you can think of off the top of your head that's really something that was a big challenge kind of growing or transitioning into another business? Or
I think my biggest challenges are going to be 2 parts, or two challenges that have come up. The first one's definitely like we mentioned the the capital component, right? Like how do you grow a business and how do you acquire, more space and who is funding this stuff? So that part's been really challenging because it's a lot of sweat equity. And that's been one that's, you just do. I've got a lot of buddies that think I'm pretty crazy, for the hours I was spending the last 10 years on this project per se. It's gotten better. There's been a better, I don't like the word or terminology like work-life balance. I'm not a big fan of that. I think there's more of an element of like, how does it all integrate together? Which of course can just be a balance, I know. But for me, it's the idea of like a healthy state. Is there a healthiness in the relationships between the two and what I'm doing? So that's been the part where, well, if it was sweat equity, it's like you're burning the midnight oil, right? Like you're working till midnight, 2, 5 a.m. It doesn't matter. You work all night, all day, constantly. There's no vacations, that kind of deal, right? But I think that is one that translates into the other challenge for me too, which is like being less involved with the daily. It's great that I can do all of the things I was doing, but that's where you end up killing yourself trying to be all for everyone. And I think that's where kind of leaning on other team members to be able to do things that they can do has been great. And so that's where that's shifted. It's like I can't ask so-and-so to do Y if they're not good at that at all. Yeah. So then it has to be like a question of like, well, do I need to be selling that? Is that something I need to be doing? Or should we like maybe can that and then double down on the areas that other team members are really good at? And then thus pulling me out of the day-to-day production components, which then allows me to be a better leader, be a better resource for the team. Because if I'm busy doing production or doing X, Y, and Z, I'm not a good resource for them. And then thus the business doesn't grow very fast or very well. So you look up 3 years down the road after building it, and it's like, well, this is a total mess. This is no, we can't repeat any of these practices. Can't bring anyone on. And so you kind of like pigeonhole yourself into a terrible scenario where most people are like, well, just hire someone. Like if I tried to do that, it'd be more work to integrate them into what we're doing because it's such a mess than for me to just keep doing this. And I think that's the big problem for most small businesses is that the philosophy is you wear a lot of hats, but then you don't do a really good job creating lanes. So then you can't ever bring anyone on. You can't ever improve your margins to bring someone on because even if you did, it's going to be a total craziness. So that's the part where we've been doing that. We've been really committed to that. Physically moving people to different parts of the building.
Okay.
And also financially changing how we have things structured. And then also like me just not pursuing different services because it just means I'm going to have to end up doing it because we don't have the team members for those particular services. And nothing on our team. Our team's great. They are definitely, everyone's got their skills. And so that's where we're trying to really focus in on those.
Okay. And you mentioned that your father is the owner. You've got a brother here doing a part of the business. And then you said you have 3 children. You said you don't like to use work-life balance, but how's that worked out with your family and having to work so many hours and having to work these?
Yeah, I mean, I think my kids, they get it. Like I like to go. So yeah, like if we did use that term, I think, it's an element of like the balance. When COVID happened, the balance went like right out the window. We were an essential business. I mean, I was already working a ton of hours before that, but they were only like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Like they were going to bed by 7:30. Mm-hmm. So I would just start a second shift at night. So a lot of times, like until my daughter was like 7-ish or so, she didn't really even know because she was going to bed, and I wouldn't start working till 8, and I would just work from 8 p.m. to midnight.
Oh, okay.
And so it was an easy, like they never knew.
Yeah.
Now there was like stress going on, so they could feel it, right? And I think when COVID happened, they started becoming old enough to see like Dad's always working. He is just like always working. So I would come home, cook dinner to like try to like reset a little bit, and then I would go right back into the office around 6:30.
Okay.
We furloughed everyone except for 4 people when 2020 happened. Now, because we were all real committed and worked a ton, we got all of them back and grew more, which is great. But then I set myself up incorrectly in that for the next 3 years. And how I did that was I'm just going to run. Like, we just got to run really fast. Let's blow this thing up. And that's when my kids did see like a really inappropriate balance there. Family, I think also you're like around your, my mom, my dad, my brother, like that creates some tension as well.
Yeah.
Just because you're exhausting all of every kind of resource you have with any relationship you have. And so that's been a big challenge. But I think the last 6 months, there's been a real big push to like for everyone around here to have good balance, to have good appropriate relationships. And I'm excited because the start of this year has been like a really great reflection of that. It still has like moments where people check in with me like, hey, you seem really quiet. I'm like, I'm just trying to get this thing done. Like, nothing, you know, but I think that the fact that we could even just have that kind of like check-in has been really healthy. And then my kids, yes, they are seeing me a lot more these days, which is good. I'm coaching a lot of teams, and we have a good structure here where I can get away. I don't have to like pull a second shift every Monday through Friday. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. So you're mostly a service business. I mean, you've got some cost of goods, I assume. So most of your expenses are probably labor. Is that a majority of it?
Yeah, most of it's labor, and then we use a definition of like manufacturing. So manufacturing could be like tote bags that we printed or any kind of printing. But those would be the two big, for us. But most of our business model is like labor focused.
Is the building owned or is that rented?
Out of technicality, the CNS Investments owns the building, and then CNS rents it from it.
Okay, so that's probably a fairly big expense too, but it's all part of the same bucket, I guess.
And that one was kind of just a quick note. Like that one was crazy because if we all know, which I think we do, in 21, that was when interest rates were crazy good, and that was the year our lease at the old place was ending, and I was like frantically looking to buy something because it's like, this is the year we'll lock in a crazy good rate. And fortunately enough, because I'm maybe considered a psychopath, that's a self-titled term for myself. I called this building's owner like every week because I knew something was going on and they were vacant, and I like just kept calling them every week for like 6 weeks straight, and stopped by, knocked on doors. No one was answering. Finally got word. And ironically, we moved in the month before our old lease had ended, which when you walk through, like, we have some stuff here, equipment, tons of product. So it's one where it's like, that's not a small ordeal to try to manage. So
you got in kind of right in time with the
right
market
on time
and the interest rates and all that. So don't overpay in real estate commissions when you don't have to. If you're thinking about buying or selling a home in Kansas City, call Neil at 395 Realty or visit www.listThe4LessKC.com. That's listforlesskc.com. With Neil's commission model, you only pay 1% in seller's agent fees at closing, while still receiving the full representation and service you expect. Make your next move with Neil. Call 913-744-6368 or email Neil at listforlesskc.com. That's Neil, Neil, at listThe4LessKC.com. Can you give us an idea of the trajectory of the revenues of the business? Is it growing year over year, and what do you have a target for that?
Yeah, revenue's been growing. So we grew too much from 2020 to 2023. We were growing anywhere between 30 and 50%, like year over year. And in my opinion, that can be fine. Like if you have the right administrative team, I think that anyone can take that on. But we're pretty thin here. I'm basically the only full-time admin. My mom is our accountant, but she's working part-time here and part-time at our daycare because she's the owner of the daycare. Okay. My dad is the owner, but he is all in on production. Okay. So in terms of like forward thinking, structuring, like that's a big ask to have him pull out of production and do that piece. And then my brother's 100% production as well. So that's a challenge as well for him to pull outside and start to, map things out and problem solve from a non-production side. So for us, my goal kind of moving forward now is like 10 to 15%. For certain services, we just do a really, like as a brag on the team, they do a great job. So we just grow naturally really, really well. And in the print and mail world, it is no secret boomers are going to be retiring soon. I am not a boomer. My parents are very young for having a 39-year-old. My dad he's just getting into his 60s. My mom's not even 60 yet. So they have some time, but everyone else in our industry, they are definitely looking for that exit ramp. Okay. And so that's where, there's an element where I don't even know if we have to try to grow. It'll just organically happen because of what's going on in the marketplace.
Okay.
But yeah, for me, the problem is when we've grown a lot, that labor just escalates because we got to get stuff done. So then we hire a bunch of people. And so you just, in terms of net margins, they just shrink up really, really, really quickly. And so that's where another element is like, well, let's grow really conservatively so we can have some, better cash flow. Because that's the component with it all for us is like, we ramp up production, it does kind of come and go. So like, well, if we add to our employees a bunch of people, it's not like we're going to keep doing all these Evergy postcards and all this political mail. Like that comes and goes, with the seasons. And so that's another element where, can we grow 10% and hire no more people? Can we grow 15% and hire maybe about one more person?
Yeah.
And just be real strategic.
Finding the balance there. Yeah. So when you mentioned a lot of the competition maybe starting to close down or sell, is that something even on your roadmap to acquire potentially competitors? Or?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So that the conversation is one where we tend to get offended. No one asked us to acquire any of the shops or other businesses.
Yeah.
It's happening as if almost once every quarter or two, we're seeing a shop just like close down. Like there's one marketing company they did their own internal production, so it's really kind of similar to what we do. His lease was coming to an end, and he's just like, I'm just going to sell all my equipment and then be done. Yeah. I don't even know what he's going to do with the book, and you're just like, no one asked us. But we've always been white labeled, so no one knew who we were.
Right.
And we aren't, like this big name like a Henry Wurst or any of the other big names, as if people know print shops. But I think the philosophy is one where I'm all for acquisitions, but every time we've gone to the table for any of them, it's never really. These print shops or other shops they value their work a lot more than what we would. But that's because a lot of their stuff is very dated. It's dated processes, dated procedures, dated materials. We just had a video call today on a video project, and they were like, do people still do animations? And, yes, but like what they were doing, no, you don't do that anymore. And so there's an element where we're seeing in the marketing scope, like a lot of dated practices. And so I think for us, we've just kind of landed on like, we'll just do this organically. Like I think that the natural reality of what we've been seeing is like, we'll just wait. We planted our flag right here at 91st and Bond. Everyone parks in our parking lot when they go to Emerald City or All American. Like we'll just lean on being a high quality service, and then people will find us, and we'll just we'll do it that way. So yeah.
How would you measure the success of the business? What's your day-to-day goal? I mean, what a lot of people would be numbers or the revenue growth, that sort of thing. Is that how you measure your success, or is it something different?
So for me, I think right now, and this is like split between like a little bit personal, but then also business wise, is just getting everyone really, really well organized. I think that we've changed some things around. We've moved some people in terms of different seats to different spaces, physically and production-wise, like what they're doing from a day-to-day. So for me, just getting really everyone dialed into what they're doing. What are the metrics for that? I think a lot of it is it's one where, when you start seeing people operate on their own at a high level, so they're processing a ton of jobs on their own with less questions. When you're seeing, we do projects hitting their due dates and not having things kind of like slide, being 2 days late, 3 days late. The other component that I have, and I think this is one where I have a math degree, but I do think I read people fairly well. It's just the element of like, is everyone in a really good spirit? Are they operating and they feel like they're empowered in their seat? And I think you can see that. Like I've had some employees where they're like clearly struggling. And then I've had other employees where it's like, yeah, they're thriving. And I think that that's something that I'm looking for. Yes, every quarter I am looking for certain metrics. So I think for me, like, because I am a bit of a numbers guy, I'm definitely wanting to hit some marks. So I've broken up the business into all of its different production components. So we have mail, we have print, we have fulfillment. We've got within creative certain areas of production that we do. And so I'm looking for those to grow at a certain metric based on what they were doing previously and what opportunity it has for growth. And so I usually check in on that monthly and then do like a quarterly report to the admin team, which is basically my family.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where I'm at. It's a little bit loose right now. It's a lot of just getting everyone situated. ERO just moved into a bigger studio, so it's trying to sort out how it's doing its operations. Tasked our creative director to take on some more role in production. That's one we're just trying to be a good resource for them. In a previous experience I had with my church, there was an exercise we did, and there was a picture you were supposed to draw. That would like describe you in your best state or in your most resourceful state. And for me, it was like a greenhouse. I think when I'm super unhealthy, non-resourceful, I tend to just do everything myself. I am all of the different plants, and that's fine. 'Cause I can play a little bit of jack of all trades type deal, but I think where I flourish the most is when I'm not every plant in the house. Like I'm just helping each of them stay watered, stay going, give them the correct supplements, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's where I'm real focused on that for the first 6 months of this year. And I think that brings a ton of fruit for our team and business in the second half.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the definition of a good leader, is that you're able to support those other people to grow to their best potential. So what kind of skills or traits would you think are essential for being an entrepreneur?
Oh, I think you have to have grit. I think that's like the thing that in my house, like we're constantly teaching. I don't think I have an issue with that. In fact, I need to chill out most of the time. But I think like that's a huge piece. Like if you're, like I just ran a race recently and my brother and I were talking, and like by no means am I a runner, but like definitely not. But I don't mind if it's going to hurt. Like I think that there's an element where you have to be okay with it hurting. And then we ran with some people and just kind of various networks, and for some guys they fit into that. They're like, yeah, this is gonna be terrible, but they're fine with it. And then but everyone who really struggled, like they struggle with knowing this is gonna hurt, especially if you did 2 laps. This is a big loop race that we did, and so if you do 1 lap, okay, great. It's like whatever. It's 10 miles, you're done. But if you have to go around again, and it's gonna hurt at like mile 7 or 6 or whatever it is, like you kind of have to you have to get over that. And I think you have to be willing to just push through and accept. And I think that's the reality is, like, we work with a lot of startups. Like that was ERO's, like, I mean, startups was ERO's jam for the first 5 years. And a lot of it is because that's how we started, like ERO. We were doing startups of our own companies and doing all. So we kind of were favored towards that. And the thing I always kind of started noticing about startups is like, they just constantly were like, oh, we'll just outsource this, we'll just outsource that, and outsource this. And like, no, you don't just work 40 hours on this thing. Like, and there are jokes on like Instagram and all of the TikTok and all that of like, you left your 9 to 5 to work 24 hours a day kind of thing, right? Yeah. Like, but I think that you have to be ready. Another trait would be like, I think you have to play the long game. I think you have to be willing to fight the burnout, which is part of the grit, but like it's a long game. I don't think you can't from day one create the business and that be the way it looks like in 5 years from now. It has to not look that way. It's got to be a babyier version or whatever you want to describe it. And I think that I've always done that, and that's helped us grow. But the idea of it is like, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to start this company. It's going to look like this. And then once we hit this one plateau, then we're going to have some evolution to it. And that's always like bothered all of our clients, like that we've worked with that are a startup or want to be an entrepreneur. They want the website to be perfect from day one. It's like, it's not going to be. It's going to look terrible.
Yeah. Running a business is definitely not a get-rich-quick scheme.
No.
That's not, starting a new business is not the way to get there. Is there any skills or traits that you would like to improve in yourself that you think would help you with your business?
Yeah, I think I'm right now where I'm at is trying to do a better job of like getting out in front of everyone. I can like play really good EMT. Like if something happens, like I can just like drop everything, put out the fire, problem solve. But then that creates so much chaos for everyone else who's not like me. And so I think that there's an element where it's like, okay, if I am pursuing an account, I need to make sure I have all of the ducks in a row before I hand it over to someone. I can't just be like, hey, they want to do fulfillment with us and not have any of the SKUs mapped out or what we're doing, the pricing. Because the tendency, and this is what helped us grow it, but what's hurting us in scaling it is you can't just like live every day like on a whim. There has to be some mapping. There has to be systems. Ironically, like I'm a math guy, I should be able to do that, but I tend to get lazy. And so I think that there's an element where I'm hoping to get better at that, get in front of people, create the structures, the systems, and then let them, take the car or whatever you want to call it.
Okay, cool. So, as you're not the owner, I don't know how much control you have over this, but what are kind of the future plans for the company?
I think when you reached out to me, I was like, hey, I'm not an owner, but I'm kind of an owner. My mom gets upset with me if I tell her I'm not an owner. She's like, Josh, you're an owner. I'm like, no, I don't see the dividends. I'm joking. But anyways, yeah. So the plan is, I think that there's an element where my family's done a great job at working really hard to build these companies up. And they all look really, really great. They provide great service. I know I'm bragging on the team. Definitely not my doing. But they are getting in closer and closer to retirement age. And so, I think my dad's he's got a runway that he can definitely run, and he'll run it really hard. And they're both taking really great care of themselves to run for however long they want to. I think we have sort of a penciled out sketch, but I don't know. Yeah. I think that there's a component where lately we've just been saying, hey, let's not worry about that. Okay. Let's stay in the now and get this cleaned up so it's something that, like, if someone wanted to take ownership and, we wanted to hand that over, then, like, we have something that's pretty, it's not super messy. Valuable, yeah. And so, I think that right now it's been one where everyone's trying to grow this business or the businesses and get them really, really healthy and to where the P&L looks great. And then I'm sure in the next few years there could be some conversations on like what that looks like. But right now I've been stiff arming that, to be frank. I legitimately don't want us doing that because I think that is a distracting piece because there's so much work that we need to do. We've only been in this building for a little over 2 years since the end of 21. We just finished construction like last week. Yeah. It's been a process. So I wanted us to not get distracted on things in the future, but like, hey, let's clean this up, get this where it needs to be, get our P&L where we want it to be, get our employees, in a space where they're thriving and they can like grow within the company. Because we have been traditionally a very small business model, not a lot of scaling. You get your seat and you stay in it. And I want to change that. And so I think that's where we're really focused.
All right. Well, a lot of business owners, and it sounds like you guys are in the same camp, is you're thinking about other business ideas, other things you can start, and you may not have the capability to do that with the resources you have, but are there any other ideas you're willing to share, things that you've thought about, not necessarily branching out into, but just a good idea that someone should start?
So the thing I'm seeing a lot, and I don't know how to describe this very well, there are two areas of business that I see a lot of people wanting to provide service for. I don't know a ton of the companies that exist. I'm sure there are. But the things that I think that would be great are, they could be tied to a consultant type role. But I think there's a component where I'm finding this all the time with other businesses. They'll come to me and they'll be like, hey, okay, Josh, I want to like grow this year. And I'm like, cool. Let me help you. And the biggest problem with that is like you either have two parts of the camp, like two camps. There's a consultant who's just strategizing and coming up with fun ideas, which is fine. I'm not a big fan of kumbaya-ing, like sitting in a room and think tanking, because I'm much more of like wanting to do things. But then the problem is like the other camp is production and they want to be just told what to do. And I think there's like this element of like, you see it with some like back end offering services, a lot of it with HR or like accounting. But there's an element where it's like, is there anyone's providing service where it's like, hey, I will literally think tank it and then I'll execute it and then you run what you're doing? Because you just don't see that a lot in the world. It's like such a missing piece, because in the end, like, that could just be for a runway of whatever number of months. But I tend to do that a lot, and it's been something that's resonated. So for me, I'm like, maybe I should, quantify this and monetize it into the state of like, hey, I'll think tank with you, and then we'll go. And yes, there's like agencies that exist, but they're so over marked up, and they don't end up doing the actual production. And there's an element where it's like you kind of need someone like in the trenches and also in that thinking room, because for most small businesses, that's where it all fails. Like, agencies are a terrible option for companies that don't have enough revenue to absorb the inflated rates that exist because there's 16 middlemen.
Yeah.
I mean, I have tons of jobs where it's like there's 7 different companies in between me and the agency.
Everyone's taking their little cut.
Everyone's taking their cut, and it's been marked up 5 times. Yeah. And so it's like, the element of like, just like kind of more in the trenches, helping get things done, kind of flipping over that general contractor role, so to speak. So, yeah.
All right. Well, if you're cool with it, we'll get a little more personal.
Yeah.
When you're not working on your business, what do you like to do for fun?
Big golf. Love golf. Big golf guy. What else do we have here? Lots of sports with my kids. So all my kids play soccer, baseball or softball, football, although my wife doesn't want them playing tackle, so we're doing a lot of flag. So that's hopefully going to have a end to that at some point. I've been doing more and more F3, which is a workout group. That's been fun. Been trying to run more. This year's been fun to do that. But yeah, that's kind of my spectrum.
Sounds like a lot of fitness. Yeah.
A lot of just getting outside, right? Yeah. Like whatever I can do to do that. That's basically what we do. We rarely just like sit on the couch in my house. It's generally we're just always outside doing something.
Do you have any mentor or anyone that you kind of go to for advice outside of your family, or is it?
I was really big on doing that, and then I think I got pretty isolated over the last few years. So I guess I should have mentioned, I am actually still, crazy enough as it is, at 39 in a band. And so my band and I have been playing since I was in college. Nice. We've been playing for 17 years or so. And as like tonight, we're going to hang out in my buddy's loft that he's got and just hang out, talk. That's often usually very personal elements. There's not a lot of business talk. In fact, actually, if it is, they're usually on my case about working too much. But then, no, I've got a couple other buddies that I generally go to for wisdom. But more and more, as far as business-wise, yeah, I've got a couple guys that kind of know my space and world, and I can reach out to anytime I've got a question, and that's been good. My wife is such a great resource, to be frank. She didn't know very much about business. She probably couldn't dissect a P&L to save her life. She's not very much into the mathematics or accounting world, but she's always really, really great at keeping people first and helping me work through a lot of those dynamics, which has been great.
Well, let's do a couple of rapid fire questions. The just first thing that comes to your mind, and I think I know the answer to the first one. I wrote these ahead of time. Okay. So, favorite subject in school?
It was math.
Yeah. In one word, describe your style.
Style. Oh my gosh. Casual.
Casual. What would you write a book about?
I think. That's a great question. First thing come to mind, probably be something business related.
Have you ever sung karaoke? You're in a band.
Yes.
So I'm guessing you've sung karaoke. What's a go-to song?
Go-to song. I mean, anything like Kings of Leon or Garth Brooks, right? Where it's kind of like a anthematic kind of thing.
All right, gotcha.
Get everyone else involved, so I'm not the only one singing.
Well, it doesn't sound like you're necessarily looking for, like I said, one-off clients or customers. But if someone's interested in learning more about your business or contacting you about an opportunity, how can they find out more about your companies? Yeah,
we've got websites for the different brands, aeromediagroup.com and then cnsmailing.com. Generally, it's a lot of times it's me mapping it for customers. So if anyone's got anything marketing, if you have a brand and you want to do something with it, it usually starts with a phone call conversation. Hey, what are you wanting to do? What's your brand? What industry you're in? What are you trying to do? Could be making it just look better. Could be producing marketing collateral. But yeah, usually our company is one where it's, as cheesy as it is, like that we're just a resource. And so in the sense of like anything marketing related, or if you're an e-commerce brand, anything that has to do with your product, we're a great resource, and you can plug us into whatever lane you need help with. Because generally people have like a couple things taken care of, but then they don't find a shop that's got everything.
Yeah.
And we tend to try to offer everything.
Be that all-in-one resource.
Yeah, and so that's where it's that's been our sort of calling card, if that's the right word there. But yeah.
All right, sounds good. Well, it was a great conversation. Thanks for spending time with me.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in to Life of a Founder. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any of our upcoming episodes. And if you have any friends or family members who would enjoy the show, please share the link with them. We truly believe that small businesses are the lifeblood of our communities. So we encourage you to take that first step and start your journey toward business ownership.